Welcome to the F1 News Zone, the show round up all the biggest stories in Formula 1 right now. F1 is still in its off-season, but there are plenty of stories going around away from the track that is setting us up very nice for an amazing 2025 campaign. This week we react to Nico Rosberg tipping Sir Lewis Hamilton to beat Charles Leclerc at Ferrari. A former teammate of Franco Colapinto has called the young Argentine overrated. And Formula 1 has closed the Flexiwing loophole for 2025. All that and a whole lot more is coming up in today's show. Let's dive in. So, the team dynamic at Ferrari, it seems all friendly right now between Charles Leclerc and Sir Lewis Hamilton, but it's going to be a very interesting battle between these two throughout this season. You could argue Ferrari are definitely one of the favourites for the championship this season, both in the drivers and the constructors as well. For me, they ended 2024 on a very high note, to be honest. I would argue that they were definitely up there with McLaren in terms of the overall pace of the car. A lot can happen between the end of the last season and the start of this season, of course, but you know, I would definitely I'd say they're very good. And you know, honestly, you look at the driver lineup, I mean, they've got two very excellent drivers. They really do in the form of Leclerc, who's been there since he was a kid, basically, in Ferrari colours, and Hamilton, who's fulfilling his dream, really, of driving for Ferrari this year after so long in Formula 1. I'm really excited to see it. I've not really stood on a ceremony when it came to that. I've told you my thoughts about it. I'm very excited to see it, and I think the whole of the UK, all people who are at least even a kind of casual Hamilton fan, you know, would be very excited to see what is going to happen here, and of course the Ferrari fans too. But who's going to have the upper hand? Well, let's have a look at this article here, guys, because some people have weighed in on this debate, and of course the man who beat Lewis Hamilton in equal machinery, Nico Rosberg, is one of the people who has weighed in on this and given his thoughts, because of course he did drive against Hamilton for a very long time, and he drove with him for a pretty long time as well at Mercedes-Benz. So let's have a look at what's gone on here, guys. Full article on the F1Chronicle.com as always. Nico Rosberg believes his former Mercedes teammate Lewis Hamilton's inner fire may be lit up by his move to Ferrari. When they were paired together at Mercedes, they won every single Drivers' Championship, 3 for Hamilton and 1 in 2016 for Nico Rosberg. In total, the 40-year-old's title tally now stands at 7, a joint record, of course. Lewis Hamilton doesn't have to prove anything to anyone, Rosberg, who's 39 years of age now, told Italy's La Gazzetta dello Sport, and yet he has looked for a new way to push the boundaries, his new start at Ferrari. I know that he is filled with a deep love of motorsport and a burning desire to explore himself anew, the German added. While Hamilton's move to Ferrari has attracted a near unprecedented global interest, there is also detractors predicting that Charles Leclerc will quickly get the upper hand. However, Rosberg says the British driver cannot be underestimated. A change of scenery like he is having now can rekindle the inner fire in a racing driver, he said. Lewis is already a legend. I think that if he takes such a big risk at this stage of his career, it says everything about his hunger for success. Lewis will grow with this task and develop further as a racing driver and as a person. La Gazzetta says that Ferrari boss Frederick Vasseur is determined that Hamilton and Leclerc will start the 2025 season as equal number ones, with a potential hierarchy to then be established as the season progresses. Rosberg explained, "I see Max Verstappen as above all the other drivers. Perhaps the best of the young generation is George Russell, but Charles is similarly at a high level. Lewis, on the other hand, struggled quite a bit in 2024, and you could see the impression that he didn't know exactly why that was. If we start on that basis, then Charles will beat Hamilton, just as George beat Lewis. But be careful," Rosberg warned. "Hamilton is the greatest of all time, and I trust him to be able to return to his usual level. Then it could easily end up with him being slightly ahead of Leclerc at the end of the year." That is the thing. I mean, this can obviously progress as the year goes on. You know, Hamilton very much could take time still to get used to the car. Of course, I know he's done some testing, but that's with 2023 car. In this 2025 car, you know, it will be similar to the 24 car, which I don't think he would have drove in any kind of testing session because that's too recent still. So like I've said many times, I'm really looking forward to it. I really am. I think Rosberg's kind of right in his assessment. It's very difficult to predict because the cynics will say, well, Hamilton got beat by George Russell in 2 out of 3 seasons. He's washed. He's not what he used to be. But how good is George Russell? And also on top of that as well, this is potentially a Hamilton that does not or did not suit the Mercedes cars. You could argue that he didn't suit the Mercedes cars ever since the 2022 regulation change. Indeed, he went 2 seasons in a row without winning anything, which was unheard of for him. He won a race in every single season before that and only managed to win a couple races in 2024. By his standards, that's extremely low. But is it because of the car? Is it because of the driver? Has he lost a yard of pace, to use a footballing expression? I would say that he's still got it, to be honest. I really do think that. And I think that he knows that deep down. And I think if he didn't know that he still had it or was questioning it, seriously questioning it. I mean, yeah, he's questioned it at times during the season just gone, of course, but at the same time, I would say that deep down he knows. A lot of emotion was, I think, flowing through when he made those statements about he doesn't know whether he's fast enough anymore, doesn't think he's good enough, wants to go on holiday, wants to retire the car early, you know. I think there was a lot of emotion in, and knowing that he was leaving the team also would have played into that as well. Anybody who's worked their notice at work will know exactly what I'm talking about, and the same does apply to Hamilton. He effectively spent the entire year last year working his notice at Mercedes. He knew he was going to leave in January. He knew before that even. Remember Charles Leclerc's press conference in, I don't even know what race it was, but one of the races in 2023, he said about, he was like, oh, so what are you, he was asked like, so what do you want in a teammate? Who do you want, you know, what kind of qualities do you want in a teammate? And Leclerc just went, hello, Lewis. He knew Lewis Hamilton was going to be his teammate at Ferrari in the near future. He knew. So this has been in the works for a long time. And I think it's a change of scenery. Again, anybody who's been in a dead-end job, anybody who's been doing the same job for a long time and not enjoying it, because let's be real here, right? He was not enjoying his time at Mercedes towards the end of last year. No doubt. I mean, yeah, there were moments, obviously. British Grand Prix, Belgian Grand Prix, fantastic. You know, Las Vegas, brilliant. Abu Dhabi, great drive. Qatar, Brazil, not so much. He was not enjoying himself on the whole, and that was plainly clear. And this change of scenery has relit the fire, you know, to kind of borrow Rosberg's phrase. And I know, because I've seen it in my comment sections. I know some people were like, oh, Hamilton crashed his car in testing. He's washed. He's useless. It's testing. If you're not pushing the limits of the car during testing, when are you going to push them? And we don't even know if it was a mechanical fault or a driver fault. We just know that he had some new pedal setup in the car, which might have contributed to it. I think Ferrari said there might have been a bump in the road that might have contributed to it. Who knows? It doesn't really matter, to be honest. As long as in Australia, he gets in that car and he performs and he does well. I'm not talking about winning. I'm talking about a good drive, you know? Being comparable to Charles Leclerc. Leclerc has been at Ferrari for 5 seasons. 6 full seasons. My apologies. 2019 to 2024 he's completed so far. So this is his 7th season at Ferrari. You know, it doesn't matter whether you're Lewis Hamilton or Lance Stroll. You know, it's going to be tough to overcome a driver. I mean, obviously, Stroll's not going to overcome a driver like Leclerc, but you know what I mean? It doesn't matter how good you are, but if you're going up against the guy who's been there for the years on end, it's a very hard thing to hit the ground running and beat them initially. It is. So, at the start of the season, I will be surprised if Hamilton is faster than Leclerc, but I'm not ruling it out. I don't expect him to be, but as the season progresses, like Rosberg says, as you know, the championship kind of evolves, I would very much expect Hamilton to be a real contender at that point. Not only to beat Leclerc, but also to potentially win that 8th World Championship. The thing that he has incredible self-belief to the point where he was hooked up. Well, watch the video if you've not seen it. He was hooked up to a lie detector by Sky Sports F1, and he got asked, are you going to leave Formula 1 after you make that 8th title? Is that your big goal? Is that what you're going to do? Is that why you're sticking around in F1? And he was like, yeah, I'm going to win that 8th title, and I'm not going to leave until I do it. And he believes it because he was telling the truth. The man was literally hooked up to a lie detector. But anyway, those are my thoughts. How do you expect Hamilton to get on this year? Who will come out on top? Leclerc or Hamilton at Ferrari? It's in the comments below. Do you want some chips with that salt? Because there is a rather salty take from a former teammate of Franco Colapinto around his hype in Formula 1 and how, according to this former teammate, it is overblown. It's too much, and Colapinto is, by definition, by what he's saying, overrated. Let's have a look at this, guys. I know there's a lot of Colapinto fans. I've got a lot of Argentine subscribers, so buenos dias a todos to you guys, or whatever time of the day it is that you're watching this. But yeah, I mean, let's have a look at the kind of thoughts on this, because obviously there's a lot of noise around Colapinto with him joining Alpine and inevitably going to get that race seat instead of Jack Doohan. I've already spoke about that at length and my kind of thoughts on it, but let's have a look at this because, yeah, not everybody's impressed by Colapinto, obviously, so let's have a look at what this former teammate said. Full article on the F1chronicle.com. Franco Colapinto's quest to restart his Formula 1 racing career with Alpine steps into a higher gear this week in Barcelona. Although official pre-season testing will not kick off until later this month in Bahrain, many teams have already been running 2- and 3-year-old cars at various circuits as part of the TPC testing provisions, the testing of previous cars programs. Understandably, a huge amount of attention has been on Ferrari, where Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc have been testing the 2024 car for Pirelli's 2026 development program in Barcelona. On Tuesday, Hamilton was a tenth faster than Leclerc, but the latter went significantly faster than his new 7-time World Championship winning teammate a day later. You can't really read much into testing times, to be honest. Too many different variables, but it's positive. It's positive for sure for both. Being quite close to each other is a good sign, I'd say, for Ferrari. It's great that he's gone to Ferrari. MotoGP legend Valentino Rossi said, referring to the 40-year-old Hamilton to that newspaper. Rossi, of course, could have drove for Ferrari in Formula 1 in the mid-2000s. He had some very successful tests, but ended up sticking with bikes. And I'm sure that Rossi and Hamilton did like a joint piece together as part of some Sky thing at Mugello years ago. So they know each other, unsurprisingly. Legend, game respects game. Legends respect legends at the end of the day. So there we go. I'm curious to see how it all goes. Rossi said, I'm keen to see how he copes and how Leclerc copes. Over in the Alpine garage, meanwhile, there is also intrigue with the newly signed 2025 reserve driver Colapinto switching between 2022 and 23 spec cars. Also in action in the same cars is Jack Doohan, who will replace Colapinto after the first 5 races of the season. The head-to-head in Barcelona gives Alpine an early indicator of which driver is faster. According to Russian sports car driver Roman Rusanov, the hype surrounding Colapinto is overblown. In 2021, they were teammates at the G-Drive team in WEC. Rusanov told Russia's Championat that he was not overly impressed with either Colapinto's driving in sports cars or in Formula 1 with Williams last year. For me personally, Colapinto did not make any splash in Formula 1, he said. Okay. He had 2 options: drive carefully, but then he might not be remembered, or push as hard as possible, which led to constant crashes. I'll finish the quote before I comment on that. At Williams, he did exactly the same thing as he did in G-Drive. Franco is a good driver in terms of lap time, but in terms of results, he has never lived up to expectations. He makes a lot of mistakes. Unfortunately, he does not seem to learn from them. He just tries again and again to prove that he is the fastest and makes mistakes. In the 6 races that Franco drove for us, he made 5 mistakes. In the only race where Colapinto did not make any mistakes, he won. So he is a good and quite fast driver, but he is still a child. Speed alone is not enough. I really like Franco, he is a great guy, but in general, all this hype around him is not justified by the final results. Well, let me get my thoughts about that out, because I rather disagree with that take, to say the least. Because at the end of the day, right, you can be critical of Colapinto and how many crashes he had at Williams. Absolutely. I don't know about his sports car career 3 years ago. I can't say I've watched every race in the WEC. I catch the highlights every now and again. That's kind of it, really, to be honest. As you kind of expect by the length of these races, they last quite a long time. They're not very easy to watch. You might have one in the background, but that's kind of it, really. So I can't really comment on his time in WEC. He would have been, he's 21 now, so in 2021, he would have been like 17, 18. He would have literally been pretty much a child at that point. So he might well have been rough around the edges and made lots of mistakes and crashes, The kid's a kid, But nowadays in Formula 1, I do rate him. I really do think he's good. At the end of the day, even if you think cynically and say, well, he crashed a lot at Williams, he made a lot of mistakes, but the fact remains is that he managed to do something that Logan Sargent couldn't do in the Williams in 2024. And that was score points. He did it twice, I think, didn't he? He did it in Azerbaijan and Italy. Now, even if you're thinking cynically and saying, oh, well, Sargent might have got points in Italy, I don't think he would have done. I don't think he would have done personally. But even if you think that, the fact that Colapinto came in at the 11th hour like that, straight out of F2, this kid was racing in Formula 3 in 2023. I actually met him at Silverstone. when he was racing in Formula 3. So he was in that championship like less than 12 months before he made his F1 debut. That's a huge rise. That is such a change in everything, and he adapted to that car really well, I thought. And yes, he made mistakes, he made crashes, but so did everybody else. So did Alex Albon. Albon had a lot of crashes too last year. If you look at the frequency throughout the entire season, yeah, it's more often that Colapinto made mistakes, but he's a rookie. He's inexperienced. Even the experienced driver in the form of Alex Albon, who I rate really highly, also made mistakes. So this really does taste of sour grapes, to be honest with you. I'm not sure where this guy's coming from with this one. He seems rather jealous and bitter, to be honest. He really does. You know, and like I said, even if you're thinking cynically with Colapinto, at the end of the day, what is the most important thing in Formula 1 as a driver? Right? Speed, your pace, right? You can be a really fast driver and you can learn how to not crash cars, be more consistent with experience. But it's very difficult to make a consistent driver fast, and that's the difference. Franco Colapinto is fast, and if you're thinking cynically, inconsistent, right? And that's even a negative take in my opinion. You know, I think that he was doing his best and he was doing a good job in that Williams. I really do, and I think he'll do a good job as well when he comes into the Alpine. But at the end of the day, with experience, he will be more well-rounded as a driver. You know, every driver makes mistakes, particularly in their rookie season. Max Verstappen did, Lewis Hamilton did, Fernando Alonso probably did. So long ago, I can't remember off the top of my head. He probably made some mistake at some point in that Minardi in 01. I'd be shocked if he didn't, because that car was not particularly good. You know, it happens to all of them. It happens to all. You even see experienced drivers making mistakes, like Lance Stroll. Just saying. So yeah, for me, I think this quote is a load of baloney, to put it politely. What do you guys think? Let us know in the comments below. So the controversial Flexiwing rules in 2024. Teams like McLaren, of course, taking full advantage of these. I think Ferrari were another one as well. But it was very much something that didn't change in terms of the rules until 2025. But now the FIA has tightened this. So I'm going to go into what the FIA have said about this, what's been said about these rule changes, and how it might affect things going forward. Because this is something that could well hurt the Constructors' Champions from last year, McLaren, in their title defense. But let's have a look at this, guys. Full article over on the F1Chronicle.com as always. The FIA has announced a clampdown on flexible wings for the 2025 season, with more stringent deflection tests set to be introduced from the Spanish Grand Prix in June. Amid flexi-wing controversies mainly involving McLaren, the governing body looked deeply into the matter last season, but ultimately declared that the rules would remain stable for 2025. However, it now emerges that the FIA will in fact tighten up the deflection test by 5mm to apply only from the Spanish Grand Prix at the beginning of June. Based on further analysis by the FIA after the 2024 season, we are determined to ensure that the flexibility of the bodywork is no longer a point of contention in 2025, a spokesman for the Paris-based federation confirmed. However, the FIA official added more stringent rear wing checks will actually begin immediately this season. As for why the front wing changes will only apply from Barcelona, it is believed it is because teams like Red Bull have already spent a lot of money developing their 2025 cars under the budget cap that would then immediately be declared illegal. Ferrari may also be dramatically affected, having delayed front wing development mid-season, awaiting for the FIA's decision, which ultimately declared that the rules will remain stable for 2025. Leo Torini, a well-known Italian journalist, says that he has heard rumours of sensational improvements in lap time from the new Ferrari in the simulator. Another Italian source, Autoracer, claims there is a broad belief among rival teams that McLaren played a key role in pressuring the FIA to tighten testing. This came after a season finale in which Ferrari showed excellent competitiveness and McLaren feared that Red Bull's comeback once the correlation and flexibility issues were resolved. Okay, interesting. So it very much appears as though the shoe is on the other foot when it comes to these regulations for the wings being flexible. So for those that don't know, just a very brief rundown of why this is such a point of contention. So basically, when a Formula 1 car is running at full speed, a lot of air pressure is going over the aerofoils, the front wing, the rear wing, any kind of bodywork, stuff like that, because basically you've got more air that is rushing over that piece of bodywork per second because the car is moving faster, if you know what I mean. So there's a greater load placed upon it. If there's a greater load placed upon it, then the wings will flex. Now, the amount that these wings flex is determined by the actual rules of Formula 1. This was a big point of contention, I remember, back in, I want to say 2012, maybe 2013, somewhere around then, where the flexibility of the bodywork basically meant in the FIAs that it was unsafe. So, because if these wings flex too much, then potentially you could have them actually hitting the floor in the case of the front wing, and therefore that is unsafe. Now, Formula 1 teams, despite how much turbulence a front wing like that would actually cause for the rest of the bodywork, it's actually kind of good for them in a sense, because you get less aerodynamic drag, because in general they are actually thinner, and also on top of that too, they weigh less as well. So it's very much a benefit and kind of negative analysis really when it comes to that. But on the whole, flexible front wings do actually help Formula 1 cars, or at least they have to, because otherwise why would they be doing it? Now, throughout 2024, we actually did hear some things on this as well, this rear wing being one of them as well. A lot of controversy around that, and eventually it was kind of banned after Singapore. I mean, there was a lot of different aerodynamic kind of devices and stuff like that for McLaren and Red Bull in particular, very stringently, assessed by the FIA. Ultimately, there was nothing severe in terms of disqualifications or anything like that we've seen in the past for barge boards being dodgy for Ferrari back in '99, I think, that they were disqualified but then reinstated. There was nothing like that. And the 2025 regulations, despite all this, were meant to stay the same. Now, I do understand why they're wanting to change them, why they're wanting to tighten them up. It is a bit strange how they're only doing it halfway through the season, but again, in a budget cap, cost cap era, I do understand it, because if a team like Red Bull or Ferrari or McLaren or anybody has spent millions of dollars developing their front wing, their rear wing, just to have it basically said, no, can't do that, you can't do that, you can't enter that car, then that is millions down the pan, and they might well fail the cost cap for it. And Formula 1 on the whole is just a poorer sport really, because you've got less development there and less cars at the front being competitive. I think I speak for most F1 fans when I say that I want the competitiveness at the front. I want to see 4 teams potentially going for the title this year. I want to see it. I think Mercedes will probably struggle. I think we'll probably see only 3, Red Bull, McLaren, and Ferrari as well on top of that. But we'll have to see what happens. So it is strange in a sense they're only bringing this in for the midpoint of the season in Spain, but I do understand their thinking, because Formula 1 is different now. If this was in the pre-cost cap era, then they'd just bring it in straight away, because they could just develop the way out of it. But in a cost cap era, they have to be very careful with what they do at the end of the day. So it sounds like it could well be a big blow to Ferrari, but only halfway through the season. Whatever designs they've been working on, if those sources are accurate, I mean, take the Italian sources as you will. I mean, obviously the whole of Italy wants Ferrari for Ferrari to win a championship, so of course they'll be saying stuff like this, selling papers, getting clicks on websites and stuff like that. That's the game. It's always been the same. The medium has changed, but the media has not. It's just how they go about it. So we'll have to see what happens. I'm hoping for a very competitive season, but yeah, on the whole, I do get it, because it does look a bit daft. It's not as much as it used to be, of course, and there is the safety aspect to it as well, and it's not a great look for Formula 1, but it's strange how they've decided to do this now. They could have easily just said around, because it was Monza and Azerbaijan where this really came to a head, because you see very high speeds there. Again, the pressure on the ring is a lot more around those tracks. So it is strange how they brought it in now. They could have easily said after the Italian Grand Prix, for example, like, right, your wings are good for the rest of this year, but for 2025, you got to tighten that up. You got to make that stronger. You got to go within this deflection rather than this deflection. So it is odd how they've chosen to do this now, but let's see what happens. Let's see what happens. Your thoughts in the comments below, guys. Are the FIA doing the right thing here by changing the rules on flexible wings? I want to hear your thoughts in the comments below. And who do you think is going to affect the most? Going off of that, it sounds like Ferrari and Red Bull will probably be impacted more than McLaren, which is odd, because McLaren are the team that started this whole thing, and they seem to arguably be benefiting by it, if those rumours are to be believed anyway. So, Sir Lewis Hamilton and Nico Rosberg, once the best of friends, then the worst of enemies, and now friends again? Well, according to Nico Rosberg anyway, the feud between him and his now former Mercedes AMG teammate is over. So let's have a look at this, guys, because, hey, at the end of the day, rivalries are all fun and everything, but this one definitely boiled over at times. That people that were watching Formula 1 at that time between 2014 and 2016 will know about certain sagas and controversies such as good old Capgate in 2015. But let's have a look at what's been said here, guys. Full article on the F1chronicle.com. Nico Rosberg says his past feud with Lewis Hamilton is now all in the past. When teammates between 2013 and 2016, amid Mercedes' domination of Formula 1, the former boyhood friends fell out badly and for years were not on speaking terms. However, Rosberg, now 39 years of age and retired from F1 since 2016. It's been 9 years since Rosberg retired. Man, I'm feeling old now. Jacques Villeneuve, 1997 world champion, thinks that the German is an example of a driver who is happier in retirement. Take Nico Rosberg, he was happy and not racing. That's just not the same level of passion, said the 1997 world champion, comparing Rosberg with Hamilton. Appearing on the NDR talk show, Rosberg revealed that Hamilton now showers his daughters with presents each Christmas. The pair live close to one another in Monaco as well. It's true that my daughters are fans of Lewis. It's a big problem, Rosberg joked. He always gives them presents at Christmas, usually Barbies. It's very nice of him. It's actually really cool. We used to have a bit of a feud, but now every Christmas both our daughters have huge boxes of presents at their door. Lewis has to stay outside, Rosberg joked again, but he can leave presents. Meanwhile, well-known artist Paul Oz revealed that Hamilton commissioned a painting of himself driving a Mercedes F1 car that he had then copied on a limited basis as a parting gift to the team's more than 1,000 staff members. The original hangs in Brackley, Oz confirmed. No copies will be available for commercial sale. Sorry, I was looking at getting one as well. Really sad to hear that. But I am very much happy to hear that Rosberg and Hamilton are apparently all good now. I mean, at the end of the day, it did boil over for sure. We had Capgate when the 2015 USGP decided the championship that year. For you guys that aren't aware of that, basically, I think Hamilton won the race and Rosberg was second because of that famous gust of wind that he got in the closing stages. In truth, the championship was already over before then, but that signed, sealed and delivered it for Hamilton. And Hamilton threw that. Well, I'm not going to try and make it sound like he's aggressively thrown. He just passed. He just threw gently the second place cap that they wear on the podium to Rosberg. Rosberg obviously took offense to that. I get that, because it's like, yeah, here you go, second place is always, mate. Nice one. And he just threw it back at him rather aggressively. Tensions were very much high. In 2016 it was the same as well. They were teammates going for the championship, and you know, Hamilton did everything he could to try and stop Rosberg winning in Abu Dhabi. And, you know, I don't think Rosberg was mad at the time too much because he did win the championship. He was too busy doing donuts and celebrating, as well he should. But yeah, I'm glad to hear they're all good again, because they were really good friends before that. I mean, even in 2013 when they were teammates at Mercedes, when there was no championship to fight for in that year, they very much got on. I'm pretty sure it'll still be on the YouTube somewhere, but BBC Sport did an interview with them. I want to say Suzuka 2013, about them being the best of friends, and they played the song Just the Two of Us quite a bit, which was which was funny to say the least. And obviously they were also teammates. I don't actually know, they might not be teammates back then, but they were definitely racing against each other. What was it, European Formula 3 or something when they were coming up? I think Kubica was actually in that season as well. But yeah, they were really good friends, and they shared hotel rooms. Keke Rosberg and Anthony Hamilton, both of their fathers, they got on really well too. So I'm glad to hear that they are all good. That's a very good feel-good story here on the F1chronicle.com to bring you. No rivalry, no rubbish, just good vibes at the end of the day. That's what we want. So yeah, I'm very happy to hear that at the end of the day. And I sort of agree with what Jacques' saying in terms of Rosberg being more comfortable in retirement, because he dedicated him so much to winning that title in 2016 to the point where it really made him suffer in his personal life, I feel. And that's part of the reason why he didn't want to come back and defend it in 2017, because he thought, you know what, I've achieved my aim. I've matched my father for one world title. I've become Formula 1 world champion. I'm just going to call it a day and I'm going to chill. I've got my money. I'm going to spend time with my family. And who the hell wouldn't want to do that? Who wouldn't want to retire in the mid-30s and be comfortable financially for the rest of your life? Who wouldn't want to do that? I wouldn't mind that. I'd take that. As much as I love doing this for you guys, yeah, I wouldn't mind retiring and just sitting on money. But yeah, I don't think that's going to happen somehow though. But yeah, your thoughts in the comments below, guys. What are your favourite memories of Nico Rosberg and Sir Lewis Hamilton in Formula 1. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and for much more F1 news and opinion pieces just like this, keep it tuned here to the F1Chronicle.com. Like, share, comment, subscribe, become a patron if you want to get some exclusive Patreon benefits. I've just got a video, one about the V10 era, that is out now on Patreon and the paid Substack, and also the YouTube membership as well. So check that out if you haven't already. Become a member, get some exclusive benefits. Very much appreciated. Have a good one, guys. See you soon.